to college and career. We have a duty to restore an economy that once again lifts up hardworking families out of poverty and supports the middle class. And we have the duty to ensure that our healthcare system is affordable and accessible to all Americans, particularly those with pre-existing conditions. For our constituents, these problems are not political or theoretical. They are embedded in everyday life, and we have to act accordingly. We also have the duty to ensure that the laws we make are properly enacted and enforced. Oversight is a constitutional prerogative, an important responsibility, and a core objective of the committee. The committee will lead aggressive oversight to ensure that the departments, agencies, programs, and statutes within our jurisdiction are operated and executed in an effective, efficient, and transparent manner, as well as following the congressional intent in their scope, activities, and operations. In an era of divided government, we must recognize that the real legislative and oversight accomplishments will require us to work together. Ms. Chairman, I look forward to working with each and every one of you to find meaningful solutions for Americans around the country. First, I'd like to introduce the new members on the majority side of the committee. Congresswoman Jamila Jayapal is not here. From Washington, Joe Morelli. I think both of them are in the Budget Committee. They're unfortunately overlapping committees. Joe Morelli from New York, Susan Wild from Pennsylvania. Susan here? Nope. Josh Harder is here from California. Lucy McBath from Georgia's 6th District. Kim Schreider from Washington's 8th District, Lauren Underwood from Illinois, Johanna Hayes from Connecticut, Donna Shalala, who is not new to Washington, from Florida, Andy Levin from Michigan, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, David Trone from Maryland, Haley Stevens from Michigan, Susie Lee from Nevada, Lori Trahan from Massachusetts, and Joaquin Castro from Texas. I now recognize the distinguished ranking member of the committee, Dr. Fox.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I also welcome the new and returning members of the committee, and we'll speak about them in a moment, but I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you publicly on the beginning of your chairmanship. We've had several private conversations recently, but as the record for this Congress begins anew, I want everyone to know how much our positive working relationship has meant to me. The bipartisan successes of this committee during the last Congress, particularly the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act and the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, should be credited to every member who served. But they would not have been possible, Mr. Chairman, without your personal dedication to seeing them through and the open lines of communication between us. My personal experience informs me that chairing this committee requires vigilant stewardship of a vast and sometimes complex legislative jurisdiction. While you and I may have switched seats, I am as committed as ever to ensuring all members of this committee are heard on the issues that fall under our purview. Because I know you also care deeply about the legislative process, you'll have my support and any assistance I can offer as you advocate for all of us on that front. Many of the bipartisan accomplishments we've achieved together over the years are now laws at crucial stages of implementation. So I'm very happy to hear your commitment to effective oversight. It's my hope that we exercise our oversight responsibilities by asking the right questions for the right reasons to ensure faithful execution of the laws we've written. We know the skills gap is real. The impacts and opportunities that come from 7 million job openings are being felt right now in communities large and small across the country. As employers are stepping up their efforts to find, reward, and retain skilled workers, this has the potential to be an era of choice, freedom, and unlimited possibilities for the current workforce and for students of all ages who will soon be making their own decisions about the future. Individual Americans with their unique God-given talents and a shared history of innovation have the power to make this era of opportunity permanent. However, we also have the power, if we choose to act irresponsibly, to stand in their way. As this committee embarks on its important work, the question of who we are empowering and at whose expense must remain at the forefront. It is now my pleasure to introduce some new faces on our side of the dais. As we've spent some time getting to know each other and talking about the work of this committee, I have been impressed with the level of enthusiasm our new members have shown. And fittingly for a committee that handles education workers, they've all done their homework and are ready to get to work. But we also have the situation of other committees organizing at this time, so we will have some who are not here. I'm pleased to introduce Ben Klein of Virginia, Russ Fulcher of Idaho, Van Taylor of Texas, Steve Watkins of Kansas, Ron Wright of Texas, Dan Muser of Pennsylvania, William Timmons of South Carolina, and Dusty Johnson of South Dakota. Two members who are not new to Congress but are excited to be joining this committee are Representative Mark Walker, my fellow North Carolinian, and Representative James Comer of Kentucky. It's also a pleasure to welcome our returning Republican members. With their proven records of legislative accomplishments and bipartisan relationship building, I know we will all benefit from their continued service on the committee. Dr. Rowe, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Wahlberg, Mr. Guthrie, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Grothman, Ms. Stefanik, Mr. Allen, Mr. Rooney, Mr. Smucker, and Mr. Banks. Welcome back. This is the best committee in the House, Mr. Chairman, and not because we have so many outstanding members. In all of Congress, this is the committee that is best equipped to find solutions for the most pressing issues facing American students, workers, and families today. I believe that keeping this in mind, we can set the example for the rest of our colleagues to follow. I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member. And I think we can agree that there will be an expectation on this committee that we'll conduct the business in the most dignified way that we possibly can and continue as we have in the past. Pursuant to Clause 2A of the House Rule 11, the first order of business is the adoption of the committee rules of procedure for the 116th Congress. A copy has been distributed to each of you in advance. And let me briefly summarize how the rules differ from those in force in the last Congress. First, the committee rules have been changed to reflect the name of the committee. The name of the committee is now Education and Labor, this is the 116th Congress. Rule 2 has been changed to reflect that the committee has 5 subcommittees and includes their names and descriptions. Rule 10 has been changed to reflect the change of the rules of the House of Representatives for the 116th Congress that extends deposition authority to certain standing committees and that a member is no longer required to be present for a deposition. Rule 12 has been changed to reflect the change in the House rules of the House of Representatives to the 116th Congress that notice for a committee meeting requires 3 calendar days, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, or legal holidays, except when the House is in session on such day. Previous requirement was 3 days, not 3 calendar days. Rule 12 has been changed to require consultation with the minority before waiving committee consideration of a bill referred to the committee. This is a consideration when in the minority we wish that we had that opportunity. So if the majority is considering waiving jurisdiction, we might want to offer some comments. We hope this will become accepted and new precedent for future Congresses. Rule 17 has been changed to reflect that the chair will not request to have any scheduled commemorative, honorific type bills or resolutions for consideration under the suspension of the rules. The chair advises members that they may still introduce such legislation, and House leadership can take it up or not at their discretion under suspension of the rules, unanimous consent, or a special rule. Members may seek to move such legislation through the consent calendar or discharge calendar. They also may use opportunities on the House floor appropriate for such recognitions as 1 minute, 5 minutes, and extension of remarks. Rule 18 has been changed to bring the rules of the committee rules in line with the rules of the House of Representatives, such that audio and video coverage of committee hearings and meetings shall not be made available to the public if such hearings are closed pursuant to the rules of the House of Representatives and the committee. One other item that is not a change in the committee rules, but was in the committee rules in the last Congress and merits highlighting, is the ability of the chair under Rule 12 to give priority to amendments that have been filed with the committee at least 24 hours prior to the committee or subcommittee meeting. It merits highlighting that this provision of the committee rules, it merits highlighting because the Congress, in this Congress, the committee will attempt to use the roster process and give priority to pre-filed amendments. I now yield to the ranking member to any remarks she may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to respond to the majority's rules proposals. The proposal is in many ways a straightforward update, and I appreciate your willingness to work with the Republicans on this. I would note my previous comments in opposition to the inclusion of the name change of the Committee to Education and Labor, which I believe overlooks the inclusive modern nature of the word workforce. As I've said on many occasions previously, language matters. That is why I'm also very thankful that you continued the practice of not using the T word in the committee's subcommittee names, a word which undervalues some forms of education. I won't go so far as to claim you as a convert, but you've shown a real willingness to reconsider the way we look at career education, and that's what's most important. I'd also like to address an issue you raised last Congress at our organizational meeting, which is the value of ample notice for hearings. As you raised, 7 days is often totally insufficient to prepare memos and to identify witnesses who may be available on short notice. I appreciated your thanks for my staff's efforts then to provide general notice of upcoming hearings and also to formally schedule hearings more than 7 days in advance when possible. We always strove to provide at least the true 7 days notice, and I hope you'll do the same during the 116th Congress. I know how much you value thoughtful testimony and agree that the more time we have to ensure we get that testimony, the better off we'll be. Full notice is very valuable for markups as well, which I know your caucus made a priority, and its commendable changes to the notice required for markups. It's my understanding that you plan to take advantage of the committee rule providing for priority consideration of amendments filed with the committee 24 hours in advance of a markup through an amendment roster. Would the chairman please elaborate on the use of the amendment roster? I yield.
Yes, I thank the gentlelady for the inquiry. Pursuant to the committee rules, and this is not a new rule, what was also in place in the 115th Congress, Rule 12E permits the chairman to give priority to amendments that have been filed with the committee at least 24 hours prior to the committee or subcommittee markup. We'll begin this Congress by using this procedure called a roster. Bills will be open to amendment at any point. We should take up amendments in the order listed on the roster. The chair will allow members to offer amendments listed on the roster out of order to the extent practicable and in a manner not prohibited by House or committee rules. Amendments not listed on the roster may be considered at the conclusion of those that have been pre-filed. The chair may allow members who have more than one amendment to offer their amendments en bloc to the extent practical, In utilizing the roster, the majority will give sufficient time to the minority to draft and submit amendments for the roster. If, in the opinion of the chair, the roster system does not add efficiency to committee meetings, the chair reserves the right to terminate the use of this process and will provide notice to the ranking member of such a decision. The chair also reserves the right to utilize roster process on a case-by-case basis, in which case notice of such use of roster will be provided to the committee meeting notice. That said, I hope members will take advantage of the process so that we may engage in a more thoughtful debate, and it's always helpful to have the amendments in advance so that we can prepare a response. Many may be non-controversial and they can be dispensed with easily. Others are controversial and we may need to make extensive comment. I'd say that there will be the letter of the law where there will be notice required. We'll conform to that, but we'll also give as much notice as we possibly can. I think our staffs have been talking about future ideas we have for committee hearings so that you can prepare potential witnesses well in advance and identify them so that when the notice is given, you're well on your way. So I think we'll not only have the letter of the law for notice, but also try to conform as much as we can to notice. I yield back.
I thank the chair for this explanation. Use of such an amendment roster can be beneficial to all members of the committee as it provides time for both sides to consider amendments and allows for orderly markups. In order to ensure all members of the committee have sufficient notice to prepare amendments for submission to the committee within the 24-hour deadline, though, I hope the chairman will provide ample notice for the markups. I also ask that the chairman be open to reasonable consideration for members of the committee who prepare and submit amendments promptly and in good faith when appropriate and practicable, and I believe your comments express that position. So I thank you very much, and I yield back.
Thank you. Does any other member desire to be recognized on the committee rules? Gentlelady from Washington.
Oregon, Mr. Chairman, but thank you for the recognition. I just want to request a clarification.
Gentlelady from Oregon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to request some clarification from Dr. Fox, because when Ranking Member Fox said she thanked you for not using the T word in the title of the committee, and I saw some confused faces, and I wonder if Dr. Fox could perhaps explain to the new members of the committee who are not familiar with her position on that issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would the chairman yield?
I'll yield to the gentlelady from North Carolina.
Okay, good. I'll get this lesson out of the way very early. I have a great affection for people at all walks of life in this country. Only about 30% of the people in this country have a baccalaureate degree. 70% do not. And over the years, I believe that we have created a two-tiered system based on whether people have a baccalaureate degree or not. And I'm on a Don Quixote effort to change that. And I believe, as I said before, that language makes a big difference in the way we do this. I spent 7 years working on my doctorate, and the only thing that I remember from that experience is one night a student came in and said something about having been in a training session. And I had a very meek, mild professor, about 5'2". He pulled himself up to his full height and he said, "Please don't ever let me hear you use that word in conjunction with human beings again. You train dogs and you educate people." And I believe that by using the T word when we talk about education programs that are less than a baccalaureate program, we don't give respect to those programs. And so I would like to see us pay more respect to people who've been educated in ways that are less than a baccalaureate degree and who are great citizens of our country doing wonderful work, often very, very bright, mostly very, very bright, very innovative. And so I've been on a campaign to get rid of that word and call everything education, or we can use certification, we can use workforce development, but we're in the education business, and we're dealing with human beings, and they deserve respect. Thank you very much.
Would the gentlelady yield?
I will.
I've tried to explain to Dr. Fox now for 10 years
Don't.
that she does not want an educated doctor operating on her. She wants a trained doctor. I've tried to explain that. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. I'll let the minority side decide what the final resolve of that is. Are there any amendments to the committee rules? If not, I move that the proposed rules be adopted as the rules for the Committee on Education and Labor for the 116th Congress. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and proposed rules are adopted without objection. Motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to House rules, the rules adopted by the Committee on Education and Labor for the 116th Congress will be published in the Congressional Record and made available to members and the public on the committee's websites. Next order of business is the approval of subcommittee chairs and ranking members. Your notebook includes rosters of the full committee as well as each subcommittee, listing chairs and ranking members. Pursuant to House Democratic Caucus rules, the full committee vice chair will be Representative Andy Levin of Michigan. Chairs of the subcommittees are as follows. Subcommittee of Higher Education and Workforce Investment. Chair is Representative Davis of California. Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education, Representative Sablon. Subcommittee on Health, Employment, Labor, and Pensions, Representative Wilson of Florida. Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Human Services is Representative Bonamici of Oregon. Subcommittee Workforce Protections is Representative Adams of North Carolina. And I look forward to the leadership when the new subcommittee chairs bring to the committee and yield to the distinguished ranking member so that she may introduce the subcommittee ranking members.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, our ranking members are Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education, Rick Allen, Workforce Protection, Bradley Byrne, Higher Education Workforce Investment, Lloyd Smucker, and Health, Employment, Labor, and Pensions, Tim Wahlberg, Civil Rights and Human Services, James Comer.
Do you have a vice ranking member? Do you have a vice ranking member?
We do not.
Okay. I move the vice chair and the list of subcommittee chairs and ranking members set forth, as just as set forth, be approved. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the vice chair and the subcommittee chairs and ranking members are hereby appointed. We will now approve the subcommittee assignments. The copy of subcommittee rosters has been made available and is your briefing notebooks. I yield to the ranking member for any comments she may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no comments.
I move that subcommittee assignments set forth be approved. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the subcommittee rosters are approved. We will now turn to the oversight plan for the 116th Congress. Pursuant to Rule 2 of House Rule 10, the chair is responsible for preparing, in consultation with the ranking member, an oversight plan for the 116th Congress. A copy of the plan must be provided to each member of the committee. Subcommittee members shall have 7 days to review the oversight plan and submit, if they desire, supplemental, minority, additional, or dissenting views. The chair is then responsible for submitting the oversight plan to the Committee on Oversight and Reform and the Committee on House Administration, together with supplemental, minority, additional, or dissenting views submitted by a member of the committee within the designated time frame. Having prepared a committee oversight plan and consulted with the ranking member on that plan, the committee members are now being provided with a copy of the plan, which you'll find in your notebooks. The plan will also be sent around electronically after the meeting. Members shall have 7 calendar days to review the plan and submit supplemental, minority, additional, or dissenting views. and that would be by the end of the day on February 4th. I shall then submit the plan with any views received in the allotted time to the Committee on Oversight and Reform and the Committee on House Administration as required by the rule. Without objection, the plan is considered as read. And let me outline the main features of the plan. The plan specifies that the House Rules of Representatives and the House Plan, the Oversight Plan specifies the House rules of the House of Representatives of the 116th Congress that lay out the requirement for the plan, delineate jurisdiction of the committee, and provide the general oversight responsibilities of the standing committees. The plan then explains the oversight as a constitutional prerogative, an important responsibility, and core objective of the committee. It lists some of the oversight and investigation techniques that the committee will engage in, and states the committee will conduct aggressive oversight to ensure the departments, agencies, programs, and statutes in our areas of jurisdiction are operated and executed in an efficient, effective, and transparent manner, as well as follow congressional intent with their scope, activities, and operations. The plan then identifies broad areas of oversight and investigation that are priorities for the 116th Congress, including but not limited to in the area of education, implementation of the Every Student Succeeds Act, Federal School Safety Commission's report and the Department of Education's interest in arming teachers and school staff, rebuilding the schools in Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Northern Mariana Islands, and other areas impacted by disasters, the Department of Education's rulemaking to impede implementation of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, significant disproportionality requirements, the Department of Education's Higher Education Act rulemaking efforts that are rolling back consumer protections, the Department of Education's Office of Student Aid and its policies regarding for-profit colleges, the administration of federal financial aid programs, and the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program. In the area of labor, the Department of Labor's, well, they call them training and enforcement programs, including apprenticeship programs, occupational safety, and health administration's actions impacting health and safety standards, wage and hour division's actions regarding overtime, workers' rights to retain tips, child labor protection under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and the Mine Safety and Health Administration standards and policies regarding black lung disease, provisions in the Immigration and Nationality Act that protect wages and working conditions of both U.S. and foreign workers, National Labor Relations Board and its enforcement of the National Labor Relations Act, retirement security and multi-employer pension crisis, the Department of Labor's policies regarding opioid prescribing in federal workers' compensation plans, factors impacting the solvency of the Black Lung Disability Fund, and international labor issues and management and operations in the International Labor Affairs Bureau. In the area of health care, the administration's implementation of the Affordable Care Act and its efforts to undermine the law's protections for Americans with pre-existing conditions, the impact on workers and consumers of the administration's rule to expand the use of short-term plans, the Department of Labor's rule to promote enrollment of association health plans and its impact on consumers in the healthcare system. In other areas, the implementation of civil rights laws pertaining to education, labor and employment, and healthcare to ensure such protections are sustained and robustly enforced. The implementation of the bipartisan Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, the provision of education and related services to unaccompanied minors in secure detention due to the administration's family separation policy, and the Department of Agriculture's administration of child nutrition programs. The plan also reserves the right to review and investigate general legislative, administrative, and regulatory issues affecting its jurisdiction. I now yield to the ranking member for any remarks she may have on the oversight plan.
Well, it's worth taking a moment to commend you for bringing forth an oversight plan, if not as formally as we've done in the past, at least as a forecast indicating how you'll pursue this important function of the committee. And from the list you read out, it looks like we better pack a bag and stay here for a while. Those of us who were here for WIOA, ESSA, and CTE have made it clear we believe accountability is a crucial component of a good bill. Once a bill becomes law, those accountability measures show back up through congressional oversight. So when it comes to oversight, we already have a lot to keep us busy. Oversight isn't glamorous or exciting, but because so many of the laws under our jurisdiction can impact the day-to-day lives of workers, students, and small children, it's my hope we're consistent and diligent enough in our oversight efforts that we may even prevent some headlines. We appreciate the opportunity to submit Republican views, and we'll be providing those soon. I yield back.
Thank you. Does any member wish to be recognized to discuss the oversight plan? No further members wishing to be recognized. The members shall have 7 days to submit their views. Are there any members that want to be recognized for further comments?
Mr. Chairman, a point of personal privilege. Yes, this week the National School Boards Association is meeting in Washington. I'm sure we're going to see all of them in our offices, but I want to acknowledge the members that are here who represent the school boards, who are an absolutely critical part of excellence in education in our country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and we welcome them to the committee. And we'll be working with them as we try to improve education on K through 12. Is there any other comments? If not, this concludes the order of business for today's meeting. Once again, I want to welcome all of the returning and new members to the committee and look forward to working with you for the benefit of our constituents and our nation. Does the ranking member have any further comments?
Looking forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, and all the members.
Thank you. Without objections, committee staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to reflect the action of the committee in adopting resolutions embodying up rules of procedure. Without objection, the committee now stands adjourned.